As we gather for meditation on this Sunday evening, March 28, 1954, in the chapel on Sunrise Ranch, we would continue in the pattern of our Easter season meditations. And this morning we recall we were considering that which is immortal. Trying to cause the mortal to become immortal is a vain and futile effort. But we began to see that man has not clearly comprehended that which is immortal and that which is mortal. We have recognized in relationship to those who have passed from this sphere of things that all that was noble and right, all that was truly lovable or divine, which was made manifest in that life, still remains, not necessarily in the visible realm where we can see it, although each one who allows the divine to appear certainly leaves in the lives of others and in the pattern of circumstance that which is a continuation of being. But in the realm of the eternal, that which is eternal remains. That which is eternal finds expression on earth through man to the degree that man allows the eternal to manifest. As we comprehend these things, we are in position to re-examine the pattern of function as it applies to ourselves and to others. We have recognized that that which is eternal comes down from God out of heaven into the earth. Or, to put it another way, it comes to us from out of the east, from out of the garden of God. And coming into the pattern of life, it manifests for the time in which should manifest, or for the time or period it is allowed to manifest. We have given some consideration to man and his capacities. We realize that human beings have for a long period of time undertaken to penetrate into the realm of the invisible. There are those who are engaged in what they call occult activities. And there are those who classify themselves as mystics because their primary concern is with that which is invisible. Because such efforts are made on the basis of human concepts, probing into realms where man is not really at home, such persons exert an influence in a vibratory field where they produce for themselves that which they expect to find in relationship to the fringes of the invisible realm. I mention this so that we may the better understand the principle as it relates to the ordinary processes of living. Those who call themselves spiritualists, for instance, seeking to communicate with the so-called dead, establish for themselves that which they desire or expect to find. That which they contact, imagining it to be the spirits of the departed, is something which they themselves manufacture. They produce it. To say that they do not contact anything would be untrue. What they do not realize is that they themselves produce that which they do contact. And then, because they contact that which they expected to contact, they think they have proof that they are right. And these spirits, so-called, which they contact, are not the spirits of the departed, but spirits that they themselves have manufactured by the processes of their own functions. There are those who function in the range of the extremes of black magic, for instance, which comes in the range of the occult. And the evil spirits they contact and use presumably give evidence of evil spirits. But what is not generally known is that they produce that which they contact and use. Those who believe in evil spirits manufacture evil spirits and then proceed to contact them and find the evidence that they are right in believing in evil spirits. Martin Luther, for instance, had a very, very great faith in the devil. No matter how much faith he may have had in God, it is obvious that he had great faith in the devil. And so to him the devil was real. He himself manufactured the devil that was real to himself. And it is always so with respect to those who dabble in the fringe range between the visible and the invisible. Now, this range between is of vital importance. It is the range by which that which is of the higher realm of being may be brought into contact with our level of being. Spirit, God's Spirit, as such, cannot directly contact the physical body. There must be a connecting link. And in our previous meditations we have studied the nature of this connecting link. In the field of the pneumoplasm, this is such a vast subject, and one which tends to be fascinating to human minds, that we must be careful not to defeat our immediate purpose by delving into it too extensively at the moment. But to whatever degree we realize that we, each one, have a share in the forming of that which is in this range as it relates to ourselves, we can surely begin to see our pattern of responsibility. If that which is of the divine design, in the true current of the Spirit of God, under the control of His will, is allowed to extend into this range or borderland without interference from us, it can take form in the vibrational realm of our own beings and be in position to have form in the physical realm of our being. But man has for so long eaten of the forbidden fruit, feeling himself to be justified in judging good and evil, that he has developed a pattern common to all human beings, whereby he produces in this range many things of which he himself is not immediately aware. It is said, truly, As ye sow, so shall ye reap. Now, most people do not understand how this works out. The only way we can reach into this realm is through the feeling nature. The mental pattern of our own beings cannot really extend into this realm except through the feeling nature. An idea about which we have little feeling will not make any impression in this range between the visible and the invisible. The connecting layer of vibrational substance extending from the sea of glass, clear as crystal, into the realm of physical substance. Most people do not even have an awareness in any real sense of the fact of this realm. But any feeling which you have in a deep sense is projected into this realm. And this realm is always causing something to come to us from out of the east. Through it, something is moving toward us all the time. It is supposed to be the means by which the things of the garden of God come to us out of the east and take form in our lives. But man, lacking peace and serenity, lacking control, has been subject not to God, but to all kinds of things and conditions out here. Ill things. And man has felt justified in having deep-seated reaction to these ill things. What happens? The reaction pattern through the feeling nature projects out like a wave into this connecting range. And then that which man has produced today by reason of his feeling reactions is planted, as it were, in the east, and then it is harvested out of the east. It comes back to him. And whatever he projects into that range must come back to him. It can't go any other direction but back to himself. No matter how justified it may seem to have that reaction, regardless of the processes of rationalization, whatever they may be, those ill things which the human being establishes in the feeling nature, reactions of various sorts, are projected into this connecting link. Because man projects on that basis into this invisible range which connects him with the higher invisible range which he cannot directly contact. Because man is unaware of its nature, he produces in that range, by his own function, a discordant pattern on a forceful basis which prevents the shaping in that range of what should come to him from God. Now, if man would leave that vibrational realm alone, not breaking into it, not disturbing it, that which he has fed into it out of the past would soon all feed back and pass to the west, that is, to the past. And then that which was of God, or the garden of God planted eastward in Eden, would begin to have an opportunity to take form in that vibratory level. It would come to a point where the human being could contact it, begin to receive it into form through himself, through his actions, words, deeds. And then that would begin to flow past him into the past, and he would be expressing reality. You are not supposed to express into the future. You are supposed to express into the present to establish that which goes into the past. Man has so little trust for God that he tries to produce in his future that which he thinks he wants to reap. And so, by his various patterns of function, he is continually doing something with that which is to come to him out of the future. He is reshaping it somehow, not trusting God. He just must get his fingers on it and shape it in that range where it is susceptible to shaping in the vibrational realm. He cannot just leave it alone. But once you begin to trust God, you cease trying to shape your future. As long as you are bound and determined to shape your future, you will. You will spoil what God has prepared for you. You will upset it, change it, mar it, destroy it, and establish something that you have produced yourself, and then that will be what comes to you from out of the future. Now, you have a part to play in this moment, allowing that which is coming out of the future to take form in the moment, so that it may be the form of the past. And moment by moment, that which you do becomes the past. And generally speaking, the past is not altogether satisfactory to the individual. That which is extending into his past he doesn't altogether like. But once we reach a point where we trust, and trusting, centered in God's love, we are at peace, serene, tranquil, no violent emotional storms disrupting the vibratory field of the future as it relates to ourselves, and the remnant of what has been sown passes by, comes to the present, it takes forth to some degree, and goes into the past. And then we come to the point where that which is coming out of our future is not spoiled, distorted by our own function. It is of God. Now, at this point, we need to realize that the creative field, as it relates to us, in this future pattern, the vibratory range, is not just our own. Once having established a path through, so to speak, you may maintain that narrow path in relationship to yourself on a true pattern, but that will not be the wholeness of that which comes into your life, because your pattern is related to other people's patterns. You cannot draw a line into the future and say, everything that comes to me from now on is going to be just what God made. You can hold steady and keep a clear path through. If I didn't do that, we wouldn't have what we do have here. But that which comes out of the future, in relationship to myself, for instance, is not limited to that path. In this field, we all have a hand, each one of you. Whatever is there in relationship to us and to many other people is never an altogether individual thing. Something of it is yours, something of it is someone else's. When we reach a point where we let this connecting range to the east of us clean out, as it will if we just leave it alone, when we let it clean out so that we are not producing anything in it that is not of the divine design, we can begin to have a broad path into the future. But the first contact you get through will be a very narrow path. Just a little band, so to speak, a straight and narrow way, connecting you up with heaven, the divine pattern of being. And along that narrow path, you can receive something of that which is of God's will for you. But those around you must begin to function correctly before it can broaden out and permit the larger manifestation of God's will. For as long as the vibrational field, the emotional realm as it relates to us, includes others, and unless it does include others, it's of no value, then that which others do relates to this field. There is interference. every time I begin to feel that we have an opportunity to get a broad conveyor belt, shall we say, from out of the east, cleared, so that we can let that which is of God come through into the realm of form, someone has some kind of a reaction pattern, and oh, they're so justified. So-and-so did that, so-and-so did that. I'm justified. And there it goes again. Projected into this future, through which we must receive whatever we do receive from God, is that which does not belong, that which is going to mar the pattern of God's provision, prevent much or all of its manifestation. And so we must reap that. And I have talked and sought in every way that I could to inspire you to reach a point where you would cease interfering with that field. And yet you have felt justified. For so many reasons, you felt justified in doing that which projects into that field. But once it is there, we have to deal with it. We have to put up with it and get it out. And it takes time. Now we can keep on projecting into that field until we perish from the earth, if we are so inclined. And we will never receive the pure current of what God has in store for us, His provision, that which should take form. Now most reactions are on the basis of displeasure at what is in form, in some fashion. Displeasure at what is in form. So the individual reacts to what he does not like and produces more of what he does not like. And then what he does not like keeps coming. He still doesn't like it, so he produces some more of it and refuses to let it pass out of his life. The only way you can interfere in that range is by or through your feeling nature. Whatever controls in the feeling nature, once the heart or feeling nature is pure, that is, it is controlled by God, then your connecting link with that layer through which the things of God must come is of a nature that does not interfere with what God is providing. And the things of God begin to get through to us. Now we can look back to the time when the disciples were attempting to develop what has become known as Christianity. They had certain ideas, certain beliefs. They were going to obey what they thought the Master intended them to do. But if you go back and examine the pattern as it was, you will see that they all tended to project into this range something which was not of God's design at all. There was only one who did not function notably on that basis. Peter, for instance, and Paul, just to illustrate, had a concept of persecution against themselves. They expected persecution. They deliberately did things to produce that persecution. When they could have modified expression and been reasonable, they remained hard and unreasonable. And with deep feeling projected into the future that which they and their followers had to receive in the sense of persecutions. They produced the condition which caused them to be thrown to the lions and burned at the stake and all of the rest of it. The situation as it was in the world, difficult as it was, would not have produced that if they hadn't established it in their own futures by their own attitudes. It has been said, that which I feared is come upon me. Why? Because the pattern of fear projects something into the future, and then it comes sliding out of the future. How far do you think you can project something? A little boy with a squirt gun, and he makes it go 10 feet or 20 feet, or he gets it out there into the future. Little boys and girls with the squirt guns of their own feeling natures, shooting into the future, and then it comes flowing back to them, and they don't like it. So they play with their squirt guns all over again and splatter all over the place, shooting it into the future. And here it comes, sliding back. You cannot make anything stay in the future. Whatever you project into the future of your own self-active expression is going to come sliding right back out again. Now that's whether we like it or not. You can't make it stick up there in the future. And something's going to keep coming out of the future as long as you're here to receive it. Something. What is it going to be? It depends on what is in the future and on your capacity to receive and on your being in position to receive what is coming out of the future. Many times human beings fail to receive something out of the future which is right there at hand to come from God. But they're too busy doing something else, chattering about this and that, to receive it. It's there, ready to be born into the realm of form. But they're too busy with something else, following after their own fancies. They're not on hand to share in the delivery into the realm of form. Now, frankly, it is impossible for me to establish and maintain a clear pattern back here for you. I can help you do it out here in the future, but I cannot do it. It takes you. And as we agree on earth as touching these things and stop projecting something into the future which must come back to us, and we begin to be in position to receive that which is coming out of the east from God to us, and then as we begin to learn how to receive that which is coming from God, receive it into the realm of form, we can begin to let it flow into the past. Now, the things of God need to extend into the past. That's what the Master was talking about. He said, even as the lightning shineth out of the east, even unto the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Now, of course, people have arbitrarily taken that to mean various ideas about Jesus coming, which doesn't have anything to do with that at all. But shining out of the east, even unto the west, will be the coming of the Son of Man. That is the divine expression of man, which is to say the revelation of God, or the Spirit of God. If we begin to let the Spirit of God get through to us, so that there can be an outpouring of it, where is the outpouring to be? Into the present, and then extending on into the past. And where does it come from? Out of the east. That's what the Master was talking about. The Spirit of God must come out of the east, that is, out of the future, into the present, and on into the past. And when it extends into the past as far as we can see, and into the future as far as we can see, and on both sides of us as far as we can see, we will then be in the midst of the garden of God. Now, as it is, we are at the edge of the garden of God. Man has been out of the garden, but at the edge of it, down through all these thousands of years. It's there. But this little level of the connecting pattern, man could interfere with. He could project something into it and prevent the manifestation of what God had made. He could produce what he himself would receive out of the future. And he wasn't content to trust God. Oh, I know I must shape it this way, and I must shape it that way. He begins to see something taking form, and he must get his busy little fingers on it and shape it so that it will be better than what God could possibly make. And then he receives it, and it is empty. It isn't what he thought it was going to be. And then he blames God. Before we can be in the midst of the garden, we must let it extend into the past. Generations before us have been at the edge of the garden. Every step of the way since the fall, man has been at the edge of the garden. Every man and woman on the face of the earth has been at the edge of the garden. And something has been coming to each one out of the future. But man has had to make it, he thought. Something of God got through to most, at least, or life would have been intolerable. But it was not the pure expression of God's gift, because man had to shape it his way. Now, I have suggested the proper function before, and I have pointed out that the things of God must come to us from out of the east. But perhaps tonight we can have a deep enough realization of what actually takes place so that we can deliberately stop spoiling. Deliberately stop spoiling what God would give to us. A man can play in this field and produce all sorts of things. He can demonstrate various things. He can produce fantastic things. But they amount to nothing. Or he can learn to leave it alone and let what happen? Have you been trying to get into the gate, into the garden of God? You want to go through that gate? You never will. In the sense of moving through it. Why? Because you would have to go into the future to do it. Now, how can you go into the future? Can you step into day after tomorrow and live the day after tomorrow before tomorrow comes? Can you? Can you step into the future? No. Very well, then. Stop trying to get through the gate that leads into the garden of God. There is the sword, the flaming sword that turns every way. The flaming sword, God's love and truth, that turns every way at the gate. Now the gate will come up to you as close as you will let it. And if you will really stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, the gate will pass by you and go into the past. You stand still and let it come out of the future. Truly. And you will go through the gate because the gate passes back past you. But if you try to go through the gate, you never will. But if you will stand still, the gate will come up to you and pass you and go into the past. And then you will be inside the garden of God. It's the only way. Serenity, peace, cease reaction, trust, faith, all of the ideas that have been advanced and been so ambiguous to most human beings. Just doing that. In real trust, real centering in God, and it comes up to us. But we must do something about letting it take form. We must share with God the work of giving it form on earth. If you stop spoiling your future and let that pass, so that you are next door, so to speak, to that which God would give you, then you must begin to dare to receive that into form. You have to have a little training to learn how. That is what was supposed to have been in process here for the past several years. Most of the people on Sunrise Ranch didn't get around to letting it be that, but that's what it was supposed to be. Now, what is the outpouring of the Holy Spirit? I have known some fantastic ideas on that score. But the minute that which is of God that comes through the garden out of the east actually begins to flow through you, be born through you in body and mind and heart, so that that can take form and move into the past, that is the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. But it does something. It doesn't just come swishing through just to give you a little demonstration of what heavenly atmosphere is like. Just a little bit of magic or something. It is something real, something that is to take form. Now, if we imagine this layer to be, how thick should it be? How far into the future? 10 minutes into the future? Oh, it's more than that. But how should we measure it? Anything we say will be a bit arbitrary. But we will say an hour, 60 minutes in the future, somewhere in that range there. 60 minutes into the future. And in that range, from the physical form, maybe it's about 3 feet. 3 feet? That isn't 3 feet, is it? Here we have physical form. Here we have the intervening substance until it connects up with pure spirit. Now that's as far as we can go. The range of pure spirit. And in through here, we have the intermediate substance. Now, if we are functioning in certain definite patterns and attitudes, we keep projected out here for 18 inches. 18 inches into the future, at least 30 minutes. A pattern which constantly changes the future. You know, most of you are that close to the things of God. Just 30 minutes. Or 18 inches. Now, if you keep something projected out there that 18 inches, this is what I am, this is what I expect, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to shape it, well then, it's still 18 inches in the future, 30 minutes from now, and heaven is still 30 minutes away. In other words, we waste this 30 minutes, then the next 30 minutes, and the next 30 minutes because we keep it out there. We never let it all back up to where we are. And everything from God has to screen through that which we project. 30 minutes. For the space of about half an hour. Do you think I was arbitrary when I said 30 minutes? That was the estimate utilized by the author of the book of Revelation. So, for the space of about half an hour is about what it would take for any human being to let the future pattern clear so that the things of heaven could start manifesting. But to get someone to do that, I've been working for 20 years to get someone to do that. And heaven was only 30 minutes away for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And I haven't yet been able to convince people that it's really there, only 30 minutes away. 30 minutes to heaven. And they won't believe me. Enough to do what I tell them to do so that they can prove it. It takes too much faith. And their own ideas are too precious to them. And their own feelings and attitudes and reactions. So much is important. Why, if they let that pass away, why, everything would be gone. What? Nothing left. They're afraid to let it pass away. And yet this that they have projected out there for 18 inches, that 30 minutes, it's going to pass away, sooner or later. They may be able to hold it till a day or two before they die, and then it'll begin creeping back. And when it gets back, then they will be gone. That's the end of it. It's all over then. It's all over. And no resurrection. It was just too bad. Life was spent and life was done. And what happened? Too bad. Perhaps someone else will listen. Heaven, just 30 minutes away. 18 inches. If you could just let it back up, all your pet ideas, all of the things that you keep projecting into the future, you can't get it out there very far. I doubt if any of you could get it quite 18 inches, try as you may. I doubt if it's that far for any of you. But even if it's 6 inches, that's too far. It has to come back. And what you have shaped and the thing you hold out there as yourself must pass away. Now it will, sooner or later. It's mortal. It's going to pass away. It's so nice to let it do it while the body still lives. While you still have the ability to use your mind and your heart. While you have the ability to see all the beautiful things that God has made. And do your part in letting the things of God come down out of heaven into the earth. It's so easy. But you have to trust enough to stop eating that forbidden fruit. You have to be willing to let what you think you are pass away so that you may become what you really are. Now, I doubt if there's anyone here who would actually let his heaven get to him in 30 minutes. It could be done. Could be done. Possible to any of you here. But it's hardly likely that you would do it. 30 minutes to heaven. And how long is it going to take you to get there? If you try to get there through the 30 minutes, it'll take your whole lifetime and then you won't make it. Because as soon as your mind stops functioning, your emotional nature stops functioning, and your hard, determined will, it can't hold it anymore, this that's stuck out here for 18 inches will start backing up, and it'll pass away and be gone. You'll never get to heaven, even though heaven is only 30 minutes away, by trying to go through the 30 minutes to heaven, into the future. You have to back up. Let what you have made back up. Let it pass away. You can't see what's coming yet, but you've got to let it pass away. The human being ready to relinquish what he has made himself to be, willing to let God make him be what he should be. Now, someday, there are going to be a few people who come to agreement on earth as touching these things. And they're going to be willing to relinquish all the things that separate them from God, from heaven, from one another. They're going to come together with one accord in one place And they're going to start receiving the things of heaven into form together. And that's going to be a most glorious experience for those that dare to do it. The beginning of the manifestation of the Spirit of God, the birth into form, according to our Master's plan and purpose, according to his instruction given nearly 2,000 years ago. Then it was only 30 minutes away when he gave that instruction. Heaven was only 30 minutes away 19 centuries ago. It still is. It's right there. And we're still looking to find someone who will let it connect up in this earth, in this world. Now, you've let something of it get through, yes, but you haven't let it connect up. Now, it could be with you. Yeah. If you're willing to let it be so. In the Spirit of the living Christ. Our gracious Lord, I thank thee that it is so.